In 1962, three discount stores opened in the same year: Kmart, Walmart, and Target. Kmart pulled ahead almost overnight. At its peak, it had 2,500 stores, $31 billion in revenue, and a grip on American retail so total that Walmart barely registered as a threat. That kind of dominance does not just vanish. Someone has to break it. And the people who broke Kmart were never its competitors. At its height, Kmart didn't just dominate American retail. It defined it. 2,500 stores stretched from the edge of Maine to the farthest California suburb. $31 billion in annual revenue poured in, enough to make rivals look provincial, almost quaint. For a generation, the S.S. Kresge Company's blue and red sign was as much a part of the landscape as the interstate or the high school football field. This wasn't a scrappy upstart. Kmart was the teacher, the standard, the place where everyone from factory workers to young mothers could walk in and feel, for a moment, that the world was generous. The first Kmart opened its doors in Garden City, Michigan, in March 1962. By the end of that year, there were 18 stores. The growth was relentless, over 160 stores by 1966, $1 billion in sales before most Americans had even heard the name Walmart. The air inside a Kmart was heavy with the scent of new linoleum and popcorn, the steady hum of fluorescent lights, the promise that a paycheck could fill a cart and a cupboard. It wasn't just about low prices, it was about dignity, about making the ordinary feel full, even on a tight budget. This sense of abundance didn't come from luck or fate. It was built, aisle by aisle, on a simple promise that working families deserved more than leftovers. But promises like that don't keep themselves. What happens when the people in charge forget who they serve? What does it feel like when a place that once felt like home becomes a hollow echo of itself? In 1976, Kmart did something no American retailer had ever dared. It opened 271 new stores in a single year. 17 million square feet of fresh linoleum, humming lights, and red, white, and blue signs appeared almost overnight, blanketing the map in a sea of possibility. For families, it felt like a new store was always opening just down the road, a promise that dignity and plenty were never far away. But the real magic happened under the sudden flash of a blue lamp. The Blue Light Special was more than a discount, it was a ritual. A spinning beacon would appear in the middle of an ordinary aisle, the PA crackled, and a voice announced a deal that seemed designed just for the people standing there. Shoppers would gather, strangers for a moment united by the thrill that maybe today they could get a little more for their paycheck. Kids tugged at sleeves, carts angled toward the glow, and for a few minutes the grind of daily life faded into the background. Managers and floor staff still remember the choreography, the scramble to set up the lamp, the nervous glance at inventory, the sense that something generous was happening. The blue light wasn't just about saving money, it was about being seen, about knowing the store was on your side. In that year of record expansion, Kmart made itself indispensable, not through marketing, but through shared experience. Yet behind the spectacle, the machinery that made these moments possible was straining. How long could a company keep this promise if the foundation beneath it was already starting to crack? The answer would haunt every aisle for decades to come. Behind the spectacle of new stores and blue lights, something vital was left to rot. Kmart spent less than 5% of its capital budget on logistics and distribution, even as its empire sprawled across the country. The warehouses that fed all those aisles, so many that a family could find a deal in every town, remained stuck in another era, patched together, not automated enough, and scattered. While shoppers chased the next blue light special, the company's leaders watched the parade of receipts and mistook it for proof that nothing could go wrong. But out in Arkansas, Sam Walton was pouring money into a different kind of foundation. Barcode scanners appeared at every Walmart register by 1979, feeding a centralized system that could track inventory in real time and move goods with a precision Kmart never bothered to match. The cost gap grew, silent and invisible, until it was 3 cents on every dollar, a difference that meant everything in the world of razor-thin margins. How long can a promise to working families last if the backbone holding it up is left to crumble? What happens when the cracks finally reach the surface? In 1991, the unthinkable happened. For nearly 3 decades, Kmart had been the undisputed giant, its name a synonym for plenty on a budget, its aisles humming with the quiet confidence of a company that believed it was untouchable. Then, almost overnight, that certainty vanished. Walmart's annual sales crept past Kmart's by a margin so slim it felt like an accounting error. Just over $1 billion on the ledger. But more haunting was the real story, a gap of 3 cents on every dollar rung up at the register. 3 cents, that was all it took. For the first time, Kmart was no longer number one. The numbers landed like a punch in the boardroom. $52.3 billion for Walmart, $51.1 billion for Kmart. On paper, the difference was less than the cost of a single blue light special in each store. But in the world of discount retail, where every penny is a promise kept or broken, 3 cents was an earthquake. The crown slipped, not with a crash, but with a quiet shudder, an empire toppled by a whisper-thin margin. The families who relied on Kmart for shoes, school supplies, and Saturday treats did not see the spreadsheets, but they would feel the aftershocks. How does a company explain to millions of loyal shoppers that it lost everything over the price of a candy bar? And what would Kmart do now that its place at the top was gone? Boardroom lights burned late into the night, but the answers never came. Faced with a billion-dollar technology flop, money sunk into a system that never fixed the broken backbone, Kmart's leaders looked everywhere but inward. Instead of repairing what mattered, they tried to buy their way back to relevance. The company snapped up Walden Books, Builders Square, Borders, and the Sports Authority, each acquisition a headline, each one a distraction from the emptiness growing at the heart of the business. The price tag was staggering. Capital that once could have gone to brighter stores, fuller shelves, or a better deal for families was now spent on a disconnected portfolio of specialty chains. For every dollar spent on another brand, another corner of Kmart's promise faded. The stores grew tired. The blue light dimmed. Meanwhile, the people who counted on Kmart for shoes, for school supplies, for a little dignity with their discount, stood by, waiting for a sign that someone still remembered them. Was there any way back, or had the people at the top already made their choice? Chuck Conaway arrived in 2000 with the confidence of a turnaround artist, but his first act was to cut the Sunday circular, the ritual heartbeat of the Kmart week. No more flyers tucked into the Sunday paper, no more families circling deals at the kitchen table, no more reason for a Saturday trip. Foot traffic fell almost overnight. By the end of that year, store visits had dropped nearly 10%. Shelves sat untouched, the old hum of anticipation replaced by a hollow quiet. Within 18 months, Kmart's debts mounted, suppliers stopped shipping, and on January 22, 2002, the company filed for bankruptcy. The bond with working families, once so sturdy, was severed by a single decision. What happens when the people who built a place are the first to be forgotten? Edward Lampert arrived not as a merchant, but as a financier with a taste for numbers and leverage. In 2005, he merged Kmart with Sears, forming Sears Holdings, a corporate colossus on paper with more than 3,500 stores and promises of $1.5 billion in cost savings. But this was not a rescue, it was a dismantling. Lampert split the company into warring divisions, each fighting for scraps of capital, while the stores themselves faded into neglect. Money poured into the Shop Your Way loyalty program, a digital point scheme meant to harvest data but never to fill shelves. The lights flickered, the floors cracked, and the old promise of dignity for working families was traded for quarterly reports. How long can a store survive when it forgets the people who once made it matter? A handful of Kmart stores still flicker in the United States, ghostly, half-stocked, more rumor than reality. Empty aisles echo with memories of families who once filled them, while the promise of affordable abundance drifts further out of reach. Across the world, Australian Kmart posts profits of $683 million in half a year, shelves bustling, the brand alive in a way Americans can only remember. What does it mean when the heart of something survives but only in a distant land? And what are we left with here? Just the shell or the ache for what never had to be lost? Once Kmart outsold every rival, proof that ordinary families mattered. Today, only a handful of dim stores remain, echoes of a promise abandoned for Wall Street's gain. The need for dignity at the register hasn't vanished. What happens when a nation forgets who its stores were supposed to serve?